and gentlemen, welcome to A Few Rounds. I'm Brad Hoover, and I've got with me today Kary Kelsoe, and we're going to be talking about stuff. Let's go ahead and jump into it and say hello.
All right. Hello. Good day, everyone.
Good to have you here, man.
It's my pleasure. Talking about comic books, movies. It's my bread and butter.
Well, great. I don't know if you heard this, but Robert Rodriguez is forming his own television network. Have you heard
El
of
Rey.
this? El Rey, that's
El
right.
Rey. Fantastic name.
Univision. They're going to be in partner with Univision, and I guess it's going to be coming. Comcast is going to be their carrier.
Right.
To begin with.
And Univision has apparently, within the last couple of months, become a top 10 cable network.
Oh, it has?
Yeah. There was an item that I saw on the news not too long ago where they ended up pushing the top 10 and sent an open letter to CNN, the regular networks, really kind of bragging on themselves. It would be something, if you're interested in that sort of thing, looking up that news item. But, hey, good to go, Univision.
Yeah.
Well played, Univision. Well played.
That's right. Well, one of their first shows that they're looking to do, or the first scripted series, is going to be From Dusk Till Dawn television series.
Yeah, fantastic.
Which, good news, Rodriguez is going to be heavily involved writing, producing, and directing himself.
Coming to TV.
Yeah.
Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah, and you know what? TV is a lot more exciting to me these days.
Agreed.
Just a couple of years ago, I was like, really, there was just TV was really dead. I mean, you had your series on HBO and, Dexter, of course, which, of course, is coming to a close itself. But other than that, TV was almost really dead. In fact, I cannot think of any TV series or shows that were on that I was like, I need to watch this.
Right. Right.
But
It really seems that after the Friends era, you'll remember the big block, I think it was Thursday night viewing, was like Seinfeld, Friends, and it was a huge night for TV for America. And ever since it ended, it's really been, wow, how long has it been? Easily 10 years.
Yeah.
And it feels like there's really been a vacuum in television until recently, where there has been some just outstanding television programming. People really love Breaking Bad. Battlestar Galactica, the reimagining, did very, very well. And now we've got American Horror Story.
Oh, yeah, my favorite.
Right, and we could go on a tangent on that. But that being said, it seems like we're definitely seeing some sort of renaissance from the cable channels, not network television.
Even though I'm told that I have not watched it myself, but they say Hannibal on NBC is really, really good.
You're right. Checked out one episode, loved it, but for the life of me, I really can't explain why I haven't jumped on that.
But yeah, I mean, TV is really getting along, and I think it's because they're able to push more grounds. I think my problem with TV really is it felt like it was TV. It was very tame.
Right.
And, and not only language-wise, I mean, I don't have to hear bad language to watch a show, but, at the same time, if it's gritty and it's got that very mellow tone, it just doesn't fit and it doesn't feel right. And that's the way TV just never really felt right. But I think now they're pushing volumes. But if they do this right, it should be pretty good, because I didn't watch the other films. Of course, the first one was great. I love the first one. I never saw the second one with Robert Patrick.
No. I can't say that I did either. Nor do I know anyone that actually did.
Right.
But maybe this will get some good interest. They're going to start filming in Austin in mid-October.
But yeah, that's definitely good news. That'll be interesting to see.
Well, and I'm also interested in Rodriguez's involvement. A lot of writers recently have said they prefer television. And, a lot of these are Hollywood types. And now you have Rodriguez coming in. I'm sure they'll give him a great deal of creative control. El Rey is his.
Yeah.
Of course, that'll ultimately be up to Univision. But if you get the creator involved in this heavily, you're going to get maybe a slightly cleaned up version, but you're going to get the man, the source. You're going to get his interpretation of it. And if you like that, you should likely tune in. I'm looking forward to it. I'm interested.
Most definitely. We talked about this a little bit, but Lucas's original Star Wars screenplay.
Yes.
Tell me what you think about that.
Yes. Oh, I could go on about how, I'm at conflict with the two sides of Lucas, and I'm talking like the 1970s, early 80s version of Lucas, and then the 90s and 2000s versions of Lucas.
Yep.
And I really am one of those guys. When Star Trek, when Roddenberry ended up kind of passing on, and the franchise went to Brandon Braga, Rick Berman, and Michael Pilar, it didn't, it was still a good show, but it didn't feel like Star Trek because you really could feel Roddenberry's hand in it. And so now if we're coming back and we're revisiting some aspect of Star Wars, and this is Lucas's original vision, which in itself is interesting. But if we're getting back to Lucas essentially did this work, and of course it's not going to be made into a show. That's something that you'd have to have in a comic book format. I don't think any sort of, of course nobody's going to take a risk on filming it.
Right.
But, I think that means that the comic is a perfect format for it, and I really am fascinated.
From what I understand, the original screenplay is very interesting and so much different from our Star Wars, from what we got.
Yeah, way different. We've got a 6-foot lizard version of Han Solo.
I think it'll definitely be interesting, even though it is a comic and maybe not a lot of people will read comics, but it'll be definitely something worth checking out.
No, I think you're going to get a lot of fanboys that have never really gotten into the comics, maybe read, the expanded universe books. But I think you're going to see people actually kind of reach for this one. People that haven't set foot in comic book shops in a few years.
I could see myself doing that, definitely, for sure.
I'm going to do it, actually. The art that I've seen looks fantastic. They have a few splash covers. Your main protagonist is an older, experienced general named Luke Skywalker, and I'm looking at this Dave Dorman-style splash page. Made him look an awful lot like a thinner George Lucas.
Oh, really?
Have a look at that.
That's very interesting.
When you get a chance, it got the beard, got the part in the hair. Actually, kind of got the same hairstyle. A little more graciously gray than Lucas probably,
Yeah.
maybe made a request. But you've also got a Chewbacca that looks like a 7-foot gangly rhesus monkey, a very Metropolis-inspired C-3PO. In fact, this looks like, a real slender, streamlined, almost female frame. And this picture of R2-D2 doesn't have the blue highlights. He looks like pretty much a silver flat coat.
And I heard he talks.
Right.
When we talk about Lucas's both sides, I don't know. There were so many people that I think reined in Lucas during the early years, where I think he got credited for being the genius when it was really those around him, because you hear about stories about what they wanted Return of the Jedi to be, and the way they wanted it to end, but of course it ended up completely different. And of course, the prequels. What can you say that hasn't already been said a million times? Or the disappointment and the heartbreak of a million adults around the world.
A newer generation embraced it, and I don't want to detract from that.
Sure.
I'm certainly not commenting on anyone's taste. Wasn't my cup of tea.
Right. Yeah. There are people out there that love the prequels, and then there are people I don't necessarily hate them. It's just not exactly. I remember that night in 1999 being like, I cannot believe we're going to go see a Star Wars movie, because it had been decades since.
Oh yeah.
And so the excitement was short-lived, but hey, it was still fun.
Well, this was the days. These were the days before Fandango, and so a friend of mine and myself camped out in front of the theater for like 48 full hours, and it was actually a little bit of a spectacle.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember it was a big deal. It was definitely a big deal. And I don't remember anything after that. I don't remember leaving the theater because I was in shock.
Yeah, right. Oh, I remember. I was the angry guy leaving. That was my role. All the fanboys were walking behind me with a dazed look on their face, going, "Yeah, it was great," and I'm screaming, "You're full of shit! You just want it to be great! You're lying to yourselves!"
That's right.
And I went home and I think honestly like cried in my 1978 Star Wars blue comforter
That's right.
that I still have. And if I still had the curtains and the drapes, I'd hang them too. But I digress.
Right. Yeah, it'll be
So
interesting.
this tidbit, I haven't bought a comic book, and I was a pretty heavy collector for a while. I collected for easily 25 years. It's 8 limited series coming out September the 4th. And it'll be my first comic book purchase in about 10 years, I think. It'll round out the collection that I already have.
Wow.
Yeah, Star Wars was always a great, for a comic book setting, fantastic. So this will be another gem.
Definitely looking forward to seeing them for sure.
Yeah.
On this next story, where Gotham PD TV series based on Nolan's universe set between The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises.
So we've kind of got an inkling as to what era they're going to set it in.
Yeah.
So this is definitely the Nolan universe.
That's what they're saying. Now it's early. I think if anything, pre-production or at least in talks. But I don't think anything is set in stone. I've seen a lot of people comment on what they think about it, and honestly, I think a lot of people are worried. And honestly, people who are actually behind this, they would rather them just base it on the comic instead of Nolan's universe.
Right.
Because from what I hear, the comic is, and I've never actually read any of the comics, but the premise is actually a lot more interesting than it would seem. Just say, oh yeah, a Gotham PD comic book. That sounds awesome. No, it actually is. The premise behind it is actually really, really good.
Yeah. Well, we as Americans have always loved a good cop show. And certainly they'd go kind of gritty with it, I'd say. So you do sort of get that, seedy underbelly, life on the streets. It'd be great if they kind of put a Dark Knight sensibility on, homicide, life on the streets, and NYPD Blue, those sort of edgy cop shows.
Oh, sure.
So I think it's a great idea. They haven't really started. For me, I'm always confident that a series being made is realistic when they've got a writer attached to it, and I understand that it's Chris Nolan's brother. It's Jonathan Nolan, right?
Yeah, Jonathan Nolan. He's apparently involved.
Do you know his involvement? What's the extent in the talk so far with Nolan?
I don't know the particulars on that. They haven't really said. Just that Jonathan Nolan is involved, which means I'm sure they'll get Christopher Nolan's nod.
Right.
Maybe.
Well, he's the older brother, right?
Right.
Yeah. You kind of get the impression that, Crystal kind of tells Jonathan what to do.
Right.
So, I'm sure he'll be calling some shots from his Lear jet flying to Europe.
Like I said, it's so early, and depending on where they would go, if this were to be a CW or WB show, I don't know if it would do as good if they went to like another network where they could get away with a little bit more. Because that's the thing is, if they're going to do Gotham PD, it needs to be gritty. It needs to be.
Well, like you were saying earlier, a lot of networks like FX and AMC, they're starting to really push it, with the language and the violence. I don't really see why the CW would go ahead and kind of make that move. It's their demographic audience. I know are people in their late teens, early 20s. I don't know, maybe 30s. But go ahead and use a little more quote-unquote advanced language. Go ahead and get into the violence. They've gotten a really great showing with Arrow. And this Green Arrow, really has absolutely no problems shooting somebody in the neck with an arrow. You know, he's actually definitely a darker hero than these forays they've done like Smallville and Birds of Prey. And you know the characters from the Gotham Central comic book and just in the DC universe, you know, the Gotham Police. You've got guys like Harvey Bullock, Renee Montoya. Uh, actually the list is pretty endless. Hey, Commissioner Gordon, of course.
Yeah, I was curious how they might try to do that with Gary Oldman, you know, being, of course, Commissioner Gordon, how they would pull off a Commissioner Gordon in the show.
Yeah, I don't know if Gary would do it.
I don't think he would at this point. He's I don't know. You never know. I mean, you know, with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. coming out, I know DC is looking to do their own television show. I think this is how this came about in the first place, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but it just seems timing-wise that it's, you know, just...
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that, you know, say, for example, in this case, you're going to have networks that are going to watch to see how ABC does with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then proceed. Because, you know, the past couple of years, I mean, a real explosion, if you will, of comic book movies. I was kind of surprised, but pleasantly surprised that they were doing an Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the first place. And, you know, it's kind of a crapshoot.
Yeah.
You know, they tried it before Birds of Prey. It did one season, failed. Then they did Smallville, and you just got, you know, legions of fans.
I still have my reservations about it. I hope it's good, but... You know, again, when you do TV shows, sometimes they got that made-for-TV vibe, and that's a vibe that it's hard for me to get into.
Yeah, right. No, you're right. They can't do that. You know, the mood is definitely going to have to play a big part in a series like this, and Nolan, you know, and his productions have always had that. So if the Nolans are involved with it, I'm sure you'll get it.
Yeah, and touching on like the comic itself, they have so many great villains that, of course, were smaller. Some of them, you know, well, a lot of them Batman fought, but you know, in the comic themselves, they would be perfect for, you know, like we talked earlier, the Black Mask, perfect crime lord.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Wow.
Mad Hatter.
You could do entire arcs. Oh yeah, guys like the Mad Hatter. Oh, you could get into a whole season of, you know, his behind-the-scenes manipulations, and then finally the big reveal, and then a couple of episodes where they just have to go in and start busting heads, and he's leaving things in detectives' beds that make them scream. You know, wow, I think I just kind of wrote a season for them. Guys, do it like that.
That's right. Do it like that.
You know, no Andy Griffith. Stop. No, if it's CW, please, no overabundance of beautiful people. Put a few in. But Harvey Bullock, not an attractive guy. You know, let's not get Liam Neeson to do that.
Right.
But if they make it, I will definitely be a faithful watcher. That'll be one of my shows for sure. Yeah, probably got a ways off.
Yeah.
I really do think a lot of people are going to see how Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. does. And I've kind of heard, you know, of course, the fan community online is often full of noise, but it's been mixed so far.
Yeah, you know, the one thing that was a turnoff to me about that show was the fact that Coulson's death actually served a purpose in one of the movies. And
yeah, it's wonderful.
You know, and I liked the guy. I liked his charm. I liked him in all, like his cameos and his small roles in all the movies really fit, and it made you like the character. So when he died, you're like, holy crap! So you kind of felt it too. And I think the fact, and you know, I'm glad the guy can still work. You know, the guy, you know, you want the guy to work. But the thing is, like I said, I think that's the only one part, and it's such a small part, because if the series is great, then I can overlook things like that. But I like I said, when it first came out and you heard that, it was S.H.I.E.L.D.'s real life counterpart body doubles, or whatever. They're gonna
like
explain
like
it.
In Marvel. Yeah, you know, Marvel, you don't stay dead very long.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, isn't it? It is based on a Marvel comic, so you got to, you know. So like I said, I can let it go pretty easy. It's just when I first heard it, I was like, well, that's going to make the whole feel of Avengers different. Because that's really why the team actually went in the movie, when the team came together at that point, because of his death. And it's just like, Oh yeah, and since Shield's lying anyway about a bunch of stuff, and that's what they were started arguing about, it's like, oh, they lied about that too. These guys are just assholes. I don't think I don't work for them anymore.
Hey, you don't even want to know what they know about Al Qaeda.
Right.
So you think the domestic stuff's bad? Oh, that Shield foreign policy operation stuff. Ugh, forget about it.
Yeah, that you see that would make a great series.
Would
Foreign
make a great-
policy. Marvel presents Shield.
Yes.
Foreign policy.
That's right. Love to see get Shield Israel. That'd be interesting.
That's right. Still on the thing of comics, I don't know if you were a fan. Actually, oddly enough, this was only one of the only comics I own a #1 of. Spawn.
Yeah, you still got Spawn #1?
Yeah, when it came out, I was super excited about it, and I really liked the comic, so I collected all the way up to #10, and then for some reason, I can't remember why. I just stopped collecting them. I don't know why, but I enjoyed the series. You know, it was very interesting, and I'm hoping that if they do this, what we're talking about is Jamie Foxx has come on saying that he wants to play Spawn
He wants to do it.
in a reboot.
Yes.
I didn't expect him to be the powerhouse he is dramatically,
Right.
but he's a great actor. There's no doubt about it. He's one of my favorite actors too. But the thing is about this, Todd McFarlane has been talking about this film for a long time, and I think around like 2008 he was really coming out saying he wanted to do a second movie, which is going to be a reboot. Which the first, did you ever watch the first Spawn, the movie back in 1997?
Yeah, I did. Sure did.
Michael J. White, he was the one that played Spawn, and it wasn't a bad movie. It actually did pretty good. I think it grossed like, from what I read, 87 million worldwide.
Yeah. You know, he's a very obviously he's a very accomplished physical actor, and he's got some chops. You know, with his actual presentation, his presence. Of course, you know, I'm sure it was perfect.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that they will do this because I think Spawn is a great character. I know a lot of people don't really like the comic itself, but I don't know. I think it could be successful, and plus it'll help that #1 increase in value. So, please.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You know, maybe you should hold on to that. I was like, why haven't you sold that yet, son?
I think it's only worth like $12.
Come on, no.
I'm
You know, I was hoping
my
my GI Joe #1 would go up in value, but those movies actually, I think, are re-regulated that now to backup toilet paper.
Yeah, I think those movies probably decreased the value of any GI Joe.
Yes.
Actually, you know what? The second one, I never saw the first one, and you know, but I heard enough people say don't.
Right.
But I did watch the second one, and I have to say, even though I went into it with the lowest of expectations, I went in just basically saying I'll watch 10 minutes of this and I'm going to cut it off. I actually enjoyed it. It was actually more true to what I would think the old series in the comic would have been. You know, of course, it picks up where the first one left off, which you know doesn't help it, but it had enough action, and you know, it's what you expect out of GI Joe. And it wasn't bad. It's worth watching. I'll say that much. Now, I know there's probably people out there that loathe it, and you have every right to, because it's not a great movie by any means. But, you know, for me, I was actually pleasantly surprised at how much I actually enjoyed watching it, and having fun watching it.
You know, a mutual friend of ours who will remain unnamed commented that he watched the first 10 or 15 minutes of it, saw Channing Tatum get killed off, and turned it off. Was like, yeah, that was satisfying.
Yeah.
Good show. Good show.
Yeah,
and that was
a
it.
weird move. That was definitely a weird move for the movie since he plays one of the main Joes. But I guess, I mean, they made it work. I don't know. I don't see much of a third movie. I mean, I would hope they would go out on top and just say, okay, we did our GI Joe movies. You know, do a cartoon or something. You know, if you're gonna make an animated cartoon, if you're gonna do a GI Joe anything.
Which those are great. G.I. Joe Retaliation, the animated, that was hard-edged, lots of killing. You know, not like the original TV shows where literally in these gigantic battalion-sized war zones, no one got killed.
Yeah, you know, you fire 1,000,000 bullets, you shoot down 1,000 planes, and no one dies.
Oh no, they were using lasers. I was like, wow, that M16 shooting lasers, interesting.
I was a fan of the cartoon because I remember coming home and watching it after school, and For me, I don't know. I was always a fan, and just because it's nostalgia, and that's the funny part. In you know, playing with GI Joes in real life, after the cartoon was over with, there was enough body count on our couches and in our living rooms
Oh,
to
yeah,
make up
big
for the
time.
cartoon.
Oh, sure. I remember sometimes the rubber bands that kept the figures together. You
Oh,
remember they
those.
had rubber bands in the middle. They would eventually, because of water or whatever, they would snap or decompose or what have you. And well, that meant more guys blowing up. So you'd have body parts flying through the air. I mean, we really just made a spectacle out of it. Not like the cartoon.
Me and Dave actually used to. That's my cousin. We used to play GI Joes, but we also used to do battle damage. So we would take like fireworks and blow them up like on the planes, and they would leave that black scar mark. And we would do that with some of the GI Joes too. We had a lot of like burned victims, you know, which made them great villains.
Right, right.
So it was really a mix of GI Joe and James Bond because we had the best villains. We could have put some of this on paper and written a pretty good screenplay, I think. Scarface reboot.
Uh, yes, yes, yes.
Now we all know. Now you know what? Honestly, ever since hearing the story, a lot of people have come out and said that they don't like Scarface. That they find it just like a really bad movie. And I'm like, how could you think that? I mean, it's campy, yes, over the top, definitely. But that's what makes it so funny.
It wasn't too terribly over the top.
No,
I
no,
mean, it was a little over the top, but yeah. For example, my wife, she hates it. We rewatched it a few months ago, and she literally, and this thing's what, 3 hours, 10 minutes long, right?
yeah, if it's
And
the
when it was
25th.
over, you could hear her just kind of breathe out. She's like, "God, I'm so glad that's over. I hate this movie."
Yeah, I don't think I get
It's
the
one
hate
of her
for it.
most hated movies, actually.
That's the thing that blows me away. I'm so shocked that people actually hate it because to me it was a really good movie, really good crime movie, and Al Pacino. I mean, come on.
Yeah, Al Pacino. And that was a great time period for him. The Godfather, Serpico, uh, Scarface, and it's when you put Serpico and The Godfather, well, certainly the first movie. I think the second one also. Scarface came along a little bit later, but it doesn't feel like a hugely overblown Hollywood style crime film.
Right.
I really think it was a masterpiece.
Yeah. Personally, one of my favorite movies, and
Yeah,
maybe not a lot of people know because the game was released back in what was it, 2006 or seven. It
2006.
Yeah, and it was around the same time as GTA. So I think the game Scarface, which from what I understand you're playing or have played, actually, I think that flew under a lot of people's radars. It actually flew under mine, even though I bought the game. I never actually really got into it and played it. Unfortunately, I think I missed out.
Yeah.
If people have an original Xbox, if you haven't checked out the Scarface game on Xbox, it's definitely worth it, right? What would you say about the game?
Well, it was certainly my favorite Xbox game, and I really got into. It was just really well done, and when I really like something, I tend to go on Wikipedia walks. I'll really kind of research it, and the developers of the video game really, I mean, a great deal of respect for them for making as much of a tribute as possible. I mean, it was very, very well done, completely considerate to the source material. And for me, it really did kind of reignite an interest in the movie. And now that we're talking about a reboot, I'm just so very enthusiastic about it. I really hope this thing goes through.
Yeah, me too. It's going to come down to the casting of that one role that's going to make or break the film.
Well, first of all, apparently David Yates, who is a recently hot Hollywood director, he did the last four Harry Potter movies, but they've got him in final talks to direct a second attempted reboot. And of course, the first one was 1932, and it was a bootlegging movie. And then Brian De Palma updated it to 1983 in Miami, and now here we are, 30 years. I would kind of say go ahead and modernize it. Make it today.
Yeah. But what about what kind of actor would you like to see?
Well, I'm not very familiar with the first movie. But from what I understand, he wasn't Cuban. Oliver Stone, when he wrote uh, the '83 movie, there was some sort of event with a basically some sort of boat amnesty program where we allowed Cuban immigrants for a month or two to come into the country, and a lot of Americans perceived that was going to bring in, record loads of, a bad element. Anyway, he used that as kind of the backdrop. And so, now I would have to say, he doesn't really have to be any sort of set nationality or ethnic background. They've cleared it twice. If you want to go ahead and do a third Scarface, if you will, a third reincarnation of Scarface, you could literally make him any sort of background that you want.
Yeah.
And that really opens the door up for me to just name all sorts of actors.
Yeah, it'll be interesting
I
to
would
see
have to
how
look
they.
into that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the coming months in the pre-production to see which direction they take it, and exactly who they have in mind for the role. It'll be interesting to see.
Jamie Foxx.
Hey, you know what?
I think he would be great. Don't do Spawn, do Scarface.
Yeah, or do Spawn and Scarface, because like I said, I want that comic to go a little bit higher.
Right. Hey, well, it doesn't have to be Jamie Foxx for them to make the Spawn, but he wants to do it. I'm sure he would take Spawn over Scarface.
Yeah.
I don't know. All the cool kids love Scarface. All the cool kids want to do Scarface, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Or you could actually set it as modern day. Maybe. Well, no, he died in the film. Oh well. I was going to say, hey, it's Scarface 30 years later. Make it Edward James Olmos, and say that the assassin put a ton of buckshot in his face, but he actually survived. And there you go.
Well,
you kind of killed two birds with
a ton of coke in his system, so hey, anything's possible.
right.
You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. Cocaine will save your life from bullets.
That's sure. Actually, the more people you kill, after a while, you can freak out every once in a while. You're immune to bullets, and no ammo runs out.
That's right. It's a special power-up.
Exactly. No one freaks, just like the instruction manual said in the Xbox game, nobody knows how to freak out quite like Tony Montana.
That's right. And ladies and gentlemen, don't go kill people and say that you heard it here, that you could do it and
No.
get a free power-up. It doesn't happen that way.
No, no, life doesn't work that way.
Unfortunately, but still, nonetheless.
If it did, I would have a lot more gil, and we would be calling it Gil. So
Harrison Ford. And they're talking about, or at least he had dropped that he wanted to do another Indiana Jones, which he was adamant on even after Crystal Skulls, that they wanted to continue to write another one and do another one while they were still, I guess, alive.
right.
And
well, they've signed him on for the Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, which is good. I'm happy about that, because I him as Han Solo, even older, and this isn't a knock on age, because he's still kicking ass, and despite his age, it's just that last Indiana Jones movie was not exactly what expectations are hell, because they always ruin everything.
Right. So is age.
Yeah, that's true too.
Because the last few movies, Cowboys and Aliens, there weren't a whole lot of close-ups of his character in action.
No, not at all.
I don't think Harrison Ford can really dodge lasers and duck and cover like he did in the movie anymore.
Right. And I didn't hate Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It's just that it's not my favorite of the Indiana Jones of all, all four now. But the fact that what would make a great movie possibly, and I don't know, some really large hardcore fans could be like, want to kill me for saying this, but if he were to bookend, open up and bookend the movie, like going back to like a story, like he's telling a story of one of his adventures, and they decided to find a younger cat to take over as like a young Indiana Jones. That would be something to me more interesting than seeing Harrison Ford swinging around on a whip. The story itself, it kind of fell flat. I mean, I know Lucas had that story for a while, because the rumor mill about the next Indiana Jones for years was a mention of aliens and Area 51 and all that, and it's like, okay, that sounds
Terrible.
horrible.
Supernatural is great. Aliens, not so much. You maybe could do, if it was well done and not some sort of Hardy Boys kind of thing. I think that a Young Indiana Jones movie or a continuation of that franchise would be great.
Yeah, definitely my thoughts. I mean, there's enough going on. I don't think this will happen anytime soon, which will give them time to think about it really hard. Speaking of writers, I've been wanting to talk about this guy for a long time because I just don't get it. Damon Lindelof.
Preach it, brother. I cannot wait.
Well, he did Lost, and Lost wasn't a bad series. I was never a big fan. I've seen some episodes, but I never got into it like so many other people did. And of course, you
Right.
hear about, like most things at the time, the ending. But Damon Lindelof has taken off from there. He was involved, of course, in Star Trek, the 2009. He was only a producer, not a writer. But the next thing after that he did that had any kind of importance was the Prometheus rewrite, which, oh boy, as a movie, Prometheus is a great looking movie. It's sci-fi. It's got beautiful backdrops and very, very well done modeling, not creature modeling, but modeling itself. But as far as the writing, there are so many plot holes in that movie that's just remarkable. And I'm like, and people love Damon Lindelof. He's getting all the great writing jobs right now, or he was
Yeah,
at least. One of the biggest things for me, an argument wise, you see people talking about the aliens in Prometheus and about how, well, that was the first incarnation of the aliens, which that's not really true, because when they go and investigate that the room where these things are, I guess pods containing the material, there's actually
Right.
a mural in the very middle that has an alien in the middle of it, and plus you come across all those alien bodies that have their chests burst out. So for them to say, well, the alien never existed until that point, that's not true, because they have it all right on the wall. And so, but the writing was so all over the place and bad in that one, that where, of course, you get the xenobiologist or whoever that guy was. I guess I don't remember exactly his title, but then of course you got the mapper, and he's brought those little probes that mapped in the whole complex. Well, of course, the guy who was there to study the aliens sees the aliens, freaks out, and wants to leave, and he leaves with the map guy. And of course, what happens to him? They get lost. And that, to me, was at that point in the theater, and this was pretty early on in the movie. I was like, this is not going good at all. I'm just, I'm like, what is going on? It's like, this is so stupid.
I was kind of lost.
Yeah, it was. We were all lost at that point. That those, no help from any kind of technological map device could help us get out of this mess. I think
Yeah,
that's what they
no.
were. I think that's what he was writing. Really, he was like writing. How you write a note on a napkin when you're being kidnapped, and you're like, "Help me, please." I think that's
Yes.
exactly what he was saying about his script. He was like, "I'm lost. I don't know what to do. I want to go back to TV. I don't know."
Yeah, yeah. It seemed like it was a mess, somewhere in the development of the script, or the finalization, or
Possibly.
hell, every phase.
Yeah, it was a
It's like a lot
colossal
of
mess.
stuff. It's kind of, yeah, just thrown in and not mixed.
Yeah, and his next project, Star Trek Into Darkness, where he actually produced and wrote on that one, didn't really turn out to be a great Star Trek movie. I know there's people out there that love it, and that's fine. Great action movie, had a lot of great action, but as far as Khan, his character writing wise was flat. He was not the Khan that we're familiar with, and that's not a bad thing, but his character could have been so much more.
Yeah, they say they whitewashed him a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And Cumberbatch, who plays Khan,
Right.
is a great actor. He's actually plays in Sherlock on BBC, which I've heard that's a great series. I've not actually seen any episodes yet, but I'm planning on checking it out because I've heard it's pretty good. But yeah, so the writing in that was not good. In fact, that's kind of where our story is the fact that he is out of Star Trek 3, which is kind of what's happening to him, is and because he's also off of the Prometheus 2, being written. He's out of that as well. So they're basically, I guess, they got to blame somebody. And Prometheus, they're like, well, they blame the writer, so he's out. And now, of course, he's not going to be writing in Star Trek 3, but he is writing and producing a new movie with Brad Bird called Tomorrowland, which, of course, we don't know much about plot-wise. But Brad Bird is, of course, a great director. He's also writing too, so I guess and he's also got another person writing as well. So hopefully, with people there, it won't be just a Lindelof writing. It'll be, you know.
Yeah, you need somebody to be there with him.
Right, to rein him in, or to correct
Right.
his mistakes, or
Yes, supervise otherwise.
exactly. You know, I mean, again, I think the guy's overrated. All of his stuff that he's been in lately, writing-wise, has been flat. I don't know, what's your take on him?
I'm not terribly familiar with his writing. I'm actually not sure how much of a hand. Obviously he had a heavier hand in Prometheus than he did with Into Darkness. But Tomorrowland is going to be very telling. I think his reputation's riding on it a bit. It's I think really going to determine his future.
Yeah.
The fans, we're very demanding. It can be gold laden with diamond dressings, but still at the core of it, we've got a really good ear and eye for story. And I think we sense the difference between the reimagined Star Trek movie and Into Darkness. So, we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe Tomorrowland will be great.
Hopefully it will. I mean, I'm a big fan of Brad Bird. I want him to succeed in everything he does. I want the guy to do great, so that's my only fear is Lindelof is involved. But, having said that about Prometheus, I'm not really excited about the second Prometheus because the precedents of the first one, it really didn't set the stage for anything great. And the fact that we haven't had a decent alien movie, and I know there's people out there that hate or either really, really love Aliens versus Predator, and I hate them all because they're horrible movies.
Yeah.
Paul W.S. Anderson did not do any good for the franchise, and in fact just kind of ran it even more into the ground from where it was from the other, past Alien movies, starting from 3. There were so many places to go from Part 2 that their direction was just, it never made sense to me because I was a super fan of Aliens back in the day. And
Oh, sure.
And Alien 3 just left nothing to be desired. It was just not that great of a movie at all. And
Right.
I had always hoped, correcting that mistake, they would have had the cheesy opening of Ellen Ripley awakening from her pod, talking about a weird dream where she was in a prison, and then Aliens picks up from there. But that never happened, unfortunately. But with Prometheus, when it first was told that they were doing a prequel, we had a lot of hope. And then, of course, Ridley Scott was going back and forth about how he didn't want to tell an alien film. He wants it to be a part of, the Blade Runner universe, that it's all
Right.
in one place. And then that's when I started going, oh no.
Uh-oh. Yeah, right.
And at the time, Damon Lindelof, he didn't really have much bearing, so I didn't know what kind of writer he was. And, when you hear, the guy from Lost, it's like, okay, well, hopefully he'll be able to spin a cool, yarn there. And the fact that they were doing a rewrite was already a bad sign.
Right.
But
it seems like the writer wasn't a particularly good writer, and it seemed also that Ridley Scott, you say he kind of flip-flopped. It didn't seem like his heart was really into it. He was, he wasn't enthusiastic about it, but he was going to make a pretty movie.
Right.
At least I could be artistic. And it ended up being a half-hearted but pretty. And listen, I did think it was a beautiful film. It was sort of like, Tron Legacy. It was beautiful but empty.
Yeah. That's the thing, too, is the explanation of the engineers, well, what I thought was going to be explorers from the old, because the comics have been going off, Colonial Marines and all the novels have been going on their own way for a while after Aliens. So by then they had a really good explanation of what those creatures were. But of course, this explanation of engineers and how they formed humanity, and then they wanted to destroy humanity, it was really horrible. I think I think they wrote themselves in a bad area. Instead of just being explorers and finding the aliens, they actually created them. Is a bad plot line to me. But that's just me. This is my opinion based on my love of the Aliens franchise, comics, books, games, all together. And like I said, it was just really a letdown because I had been wanting a great Alien movie. But that's the thing too, is the original script that they were rewriting, Ridley Scott was not happy with it because it had aliens too soon. He didn't want aliens in this movie, and apparently they had chest bursters and aliens running around midway through the movie. So they basically took that script, threw it away, or just basically just kind of like patched it, I guess, and just took the aliens out, patched some other stuff. And I think that's where they went wrong, because I mean, with an Alien prequel, if you don't have an alien, then you don't have an Alien movie. So I'm not sure what the hell's going on there. And that's the thing is I get it, it's a prequel. But we're coming up on our hour mark here, so of course, built on the show, this being episode 1, look forward to the future and look forward to the next podcast for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, great, man. Well, I appreciate you being on, and this is Brad Hoover, and saying goodbye, and
Kary Kelsoe signing off.
See you guys next time on
Thanks, everybody.
Rounds.
Bye-bye.